either play piano. That ended really badly, so I ended up going with writing instead, and I have not regretted that.
Is there anything your sister's really good at that you're not?
Piano and violin. So she completely dominates on that level.
But do you play an instrument?
Not anymore.
Uh, but you're very good with like another pod, right? Okay. Um, what were your short stories like at age 4?
At age 4, my short stories were, well, if you can imagine the workings of a 4-year-old's mind, that was pretty much what I set to paper. So I talked about food a lot. I had these long, flowery, descriptive passages describing all the food at this royal feast. I was also kind of obsessed with, like, royalty and historical eras, so it would be really incredibly food and jousting driven because I really liked knights and that whole idea of, like, medieval fighting. So, yeah, those are my 4-year-old stories.
Long, flowery descriptions at 4. Okay. I was thinking I had a hat. I saw a cat. But no, not that.
There were some of
Anything but
those.
that.
There were some of those.
Um, and, okay, were your parents surprised by the story?
I think that my mom might have been a little bit taken aback when I decided to choose writing over food. She would call me for dinner a lot of times, and I would just be like, no, I'm in the middle of a plot twist, and maybe not saying quite that, but the point is that I think when she saw how much I valued writing, that might have surprised her.
How about the kids that you played with? Were they like, Dora, what is this?
I don't think so. Like, another thing is I played with a lot of older kids because, like, sometimes my sister's friends or our neighbors would be, like, I don't know, a year or 2 years older than me, so it wasn't, like, all that surprising to them. So that definitely, I mean, I think that competition part of my childhood helped a little bit because I was often sort of thinking, okay, these are these older kids, that's the standard I'm going to set for myself, too.
Uh-huh. My poor little only child daughter. On the other hand, you know what they say? No only child ever had to tell a therapist I didn't get enough attention.
That is true.
In any event, so, right, stories at 4, and then you started to type at age 6. Type with 2 hands or what?
2 hands, although I did do the whole henpecking thing for a really, like, or the one-fingered typing for, I don't know, many months.
Well, did you take like a program like Mavis Beacon and teach yourself how to type?
Yeah, there was like a CD that I did for fun, and then also it helped that I was like writing emails to my grandma. That was pretty good motivation to learn how to type faster.
So, whose email account were you using? Your own?
Yes, my own. I'm pretty sure that like 6-year-olds are not supposed to have email accounts, but that was definitely an example of where my parents were just like, okay, get on the internet, that's fine. I mean, they weren't like negligent, but they definitely trusted my sister and me.
Okay. Where do you live, by the way?
Redmond, Washington, right outside Seattle.
But Redmond is where Microsoft is.
Indeed.
Does anyone in your family work at Microsoft?
My dad used to work for Microsoft. He doesn't now, but definitely like almost everyone in my extended family has connections to Microsoft.
What did your dad do at Microsoft?
He was like doing software engineering and testing bugs.
Who do you take after more?
Um, I would say that I have elements of both my mom and my dad. Like my dad, I really like I guess things in the academic sense, reading literature and getting really into kind of abstract discussions of really academic things. But I would also say that I have some of my sort of street smarts more from my mom. Not that I would call myself street smart at all, but I think that I've gotten some good elements from both of them.
What is your favorite book?
I have a lot. I would say, okay, so The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton is like one of my newest recent favorite books. The Great Gatsby, Harry Potter, Chronicles of Narnia, Little House on the Prairie from my childhood was like a huge component of my life. All Quiet on the Western Front, and oh gosh, this is okay. I'm sorry. That you better not ask that question. I would take up the entire time.
Okay, let me ask you this. In the House of Mirth, right? If she's unmarried by 30, she's gonna have to kill herself.
Yeah.
Do you feel pressure
That's a really good question. I've never really looked at myself in that light, but I felt like I did really empathize with the main character in some way because occasionally I guess I feel like I have to take the high road sometimes, and in her case it's that she has to marry a richer guy, which is definitely not like the high road, but like, you know, if there's a time when I have a decision to make, then I'm not going to do something really stupid and take pictures and it'll end up on Facebook because I know that I have kind of things in a larger sense to worry about. So that was, okay, that's a really bad explanation.
That's fair. Who did you identify with in Gatsby?
This is a really strange one, but I identified a little bit with Jordan Baker, but not much. Like, just a tiny bit. Mostly, I would say more Nick Carraway.
Yeah, but Jordan Baker cheats tennis, doesn't she? Or cheats golf.
Golf, and I suck at all sports, so that's actually a really bad comparison. There's just something about her, I guess, that I empathize with a little bit more.
You care about the beautiful clothes of the fancy parties?
No, not at all.
What's the fanciest party you've ever been to?
Probably when I've been to a lot of conferences. So the TED conference, they definitely know how to throw a party. But in India, we were at this Young Presidents Organization conference, and they have dinner at 12 a.m. and they have this thing called a farm party, which is really misleading because it sounds like it would be on a, you know, like with animals and stuff, but it's just a really giant estate and people stay up all night.
I once went to a TED conference, and it was back in the big days of the internet boom, and there was something called the Billionaire's Dinner, where you had to have $1 billion.
Oh my gosh.
But I went to it anyway. Query, at the TED conference, like, do you hang out and hear other people and meet other people?
Yeah, I do. I think it's one of the best components of the conference because, I mean, you learn so much from the, I guess, more formal aspect, but a lot of times conferences are kind of similar to school. You can learn a surprising amount from those conversations in the hallways.
Who was the most interesting person you met at TED?
Geez, that would be a really long list. Okay, most interesting person I met at TED, probably...
Who's in the top three?
Okay, I would say Benoit Mandelbrot. I'm not pronouncing his name right, but he passed away recently, which made me really sad, but he...
Who was it again? Say it slow.
Okay, Benoit Mandelbrot? Fractals. So you've probably seen the Mandelbrot set. It's like the really cool-looking geometric...
Yeah, no, let me tell you right off. I was an English major. My wife is very good at fractals.
Oh, really?
But she's not here, so, you know, if we hadn't talked fractals, I would have made her do that part.
Well, I'm going to die if I have to talk any more about fractals because, yeah, my understanding was, oh, this is cool, and my dad would die if he could meet him, so I snapped a picture with him, and he was just a really amazing speech and yeah, amazing concept.
Here's how stupid I am. I needed to pass biology in order to go to college, right? And I was a major flunky. And I was so stupid, I raised my hand and said, "Sir, I don't understand. Anions and cations." And, "Oh, Mr. Corbin, anions and cations." That's stupid, okay? So let's talk about interesting people you met who don't do fractals.
Okay, Elizabeth Pisani was really amazing. She talks about HIV, and I felt like she was a really, really hardcore person. Like, as in she would travel, she would go to Indonesia and talk to prostitutes and be in all kinds of crazy situations and just, like, walk around in the red light district. And then she was telling me, oh yeah, I'm very, like, casually, I'm just going to South America to, like, travel around hitchhiking, no computer, and I was just completely taken aback, so, yeah.
It's interesting. Have you met any, like, political people, worldly people who have been very impressive to you?
Oh, my really big fangirl moment, because I'm super into politics, was when I got to meet Senator Patty Murray from Washington State. That was really amazing.
I'm sorry, can you say that?
Senator Patty Murray.
Oh, I don't know.
The mom in tennis shoes.
Yes.
I'm trying to get. I grew up in Seattle too, and she ran for office back when I was growing up, and that was her platform. She was a mom, and she was motivated to run, and that was her platform. She was the mom in tennis shoes.
Well, that's very good. Don't hang up. Now, I'm interested. You said, I've seen interviews where you talk about how much Word was very used
I don't endorse them formally, but I work with them with my TEDx Redmond conference that I organize for youth every year. They're a major sponsor, but that's not why I would mention in interviews.
Got it. Got it. So, where do ideas come from for you?
Well, I once had a dinner with Lois Lowry, the famous author of The Giver and lots of other books, and one time she said, "Oh, that's my least favorite question to get from fans." And one time I just told a little boy, "My ideas come from my head. Where do yours come from?" And much as I would like to be brave enough to just use Lois Lowry's quote, I would have to say I probably have to give a better answer than from my head. From all around me, experiences, colors, sentences, words. I mean, really, there's like no place ideas can't come from.
Do you keep a journal?
I do.
Do you carry it around, or do you just write at night?
I just write at night, and I generally don't carry it around because if I lost it, I would just hate if someone actually read it.
Uh-huh. Are you on Facebook?
Yes, I am.
How many friends do you have?
Like 870 maybe? I don't really count.
Now, I actually just watched a Lois Lowry talk in which she was trying to address the question of evil and whether evil existed. One of the things that I find in the stuff of yours I've read and in your TED talk, it's like we should listen to kids, right?
Mhm.
And kids, the way you present them, are innocent. You don't see evil, you see problems. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say that's a fair assessment. I think that, so, I mean, I've heard a lot of things about, like, sometimes children can be extremely vicious, but I think that those are often social situations, and that, I mean, like, oftentimes children also see things in a more honest light and ask questions that adults maybe don't, or that seem overly simplistic, but that can be very true.
Right. I mean, what Lois Lowry's point was, kids are how things move forward. Kids are the people who stand in front of the tank at Tiananmen Square. Kids are the people who stand up in Egypt.
Mhm.
In your speech, and I'm not pushing you to say what your politics are, you're not particularly political.
My TED Talk?
What? Yeah.
Did you see the
Yeah, no,
opening
it was like,
2
listen,
minutes?
kids have ideas, but it wasn't like kids say redistribute income, kids say vote for Obama. That wasn't your TED Talk.
Yes,
or did I miss something?
that was not my TED Talk, although I did make a slightly disparaging comment about President Bush in passing. But yes, definitely I feel like
Okay,
I'm
don't recall it.
I'm glad you missed that part. That has been slightly controversial, reading a few comments. But yeah, definitely I think that,
But do you keep up with politics? Are you, as they say, political?
yeah, definitely. I mean, I was out actually registering people to vote a while ago. That's not really a political thing, but I'm definitely very interested.
What is your life like in school? What grade are you in?
I'm in 10th grade. I skipped 2 grades, so I'm 14, but
Which grade did you skip?
7th and 8th.
Really? Did you test out, or how did that get decided?
So I was homeschooled in elementary school, and then I started doing online school in middle school, and I basically I finished all the world history courses very fast, and so they said, okay, here's the deal, you can take some classes at the high school, but eventually we would need to skip you in order for you to take this many classes. So I was like, yeah, sure.
Do you go to a public school or private school?
I do public for both my online school and my brick and mortar one.
Are you going to 2 schools?
Yes, so I take online classes, and then I also take 2 classes at my local school.
Why do you take online classes?
Because
The school doesn't offer what you want to take?
No, actually, it's more with all my traveling that it's a question of missing so much school.
Well, let me ask you, how much of each week are you traveling?
I travel usually about like once every month on average, and usually, I mean, like most people who are speaking will fly in and fly out, but generally I like to stay to see museums and such, so that's why I am doing online classes, so I can still do that. that's the problem. We never fly on like one airline enough to accrue all the like frequent flyer miles. On Alaska, I think we had like 20,000, so I bought a free flight, which was pretty awesome.
Do people like recognize you on the street, or when you go places, are you like known?
I'm not really known. Well, actually, okay, so here in Redmond, nobody recognizes me walking down the street, but it's actually kind of disconcertingly true now. I found that people know who I am at school, but they don't say it, so it's kind of strange. And then, but when I go places, sometimes I'll be at an airport, and it's always Asian people actually who will be like, Adora, because apparently my TED Talk is really big in China. And Korea.
Your TED Talk is big where?
In China and Korea.
What's the furthest you travel to talk?
Well, I'm trying to think of furthest in terms of miles. Well, the most foreign place I guess it seems would be India, or Dubai. Yeah, I guess Dubai would really be the further.
How do you decide where to talk?
Well,
I mean, I'm thinking you get more invitations than you can accept.
yeah, that's usually true. I don't refuse too many. I mean, it generally depends on how large the audience is, when it is. I mean, I have a fairly strict nothing on my birthday or holidays rule. And then
Now, what do you like to talk about, or is it the TED Talk in various forms?
I actually have never given the TED Talk again, like verbatim. Actually, I don't think I've even taken really parts of it a whole lot. So generally it is about that same theme though, about what adults can learn from young people. However, I've sort of changed it to fit with a more education theme about teachers and students, or parents and kids. It really depends on the audience.
Did you memorize the TED Talk?
No, I didn't. I procrastinated horribly and wrote it 4 days before giving it, so there was no way I was even going to try.
So, is the TED Talk on a monitor at your feet?
No, I don't know if you noticed. Actually, I'm glad that you didn't notice, because otherwise I would have been sad that it was distracting, but I had a bit of paper in my hand, so I was using notes.
No, I was just basically so stunned that you were doing it in the first place. Do you get nervous when you speak?
I would say after my TED Talk, my nervousness kind of exponentially increased, because suddenly I felt, okay, here people are sort of measuring me up against a past speech that was fairly well received. But I try not to let that get to me, because, you know, you learn from failure, and so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, you learned from failure. What was the last failure you had?
I would say, okay, so I was giving this speech in New York, and I was working on my visuals, actually, because I was giving a speech in Baltimore that morning, and I made the mistake of deciding, oh, the Acela train has internet, I'll just work on my Prezi while I'm on the train, which was a really stupid idea. Then it turned out when I arrived, about 10 minutes before I was supposed to give the speech, we just ran from the train station, that my presentation actually hadn't synchronized online, and that was kind of a mess. But it wasn't like a terribly embarrassing thing. It was just, I just felt inside that my talk could have been better if more things had gone right.
Talk about a personal failure.
Personal failure. I feel like sometimes like don't appreciate my mom to the extent that I should, and it's really easy to take people for granted sometimes, especially when you're in such close proximity to them all the time. My mom has actually been, after she left her job as an interpreter, then she is essentially my manager, so she travels around with me. And I feel like because of how close I am to her, and how we travel and everything, that I don't know, that I should maybe be more thankful for her, like, not all the time, but more than I am.
Outside of that, what would you like to get better at?
Math would definitely be really helpful. Oh, and sports. Actually, yes, definitely sports, because the other day I was doing Relay for Life for the American Cancer Society, and I was racing some people, and we played soccer. This vicious group of 4th graders beat us. I also realized I have no conception of hand-eye coordination.
But you're good at fractals.
No, not at all. I just, my understanding of those was, whoa, this dude is cool, and pretty much left it at that.
You want to go to college, or would that be a waste of time?
I definitely do want to go to college. I think that, again, maybe not all, I feel like there's a lot of learning that could be done, not only inside class, but also outside class, and the whole social experience, as well as, you know, the amazing people.
Where would you go to college if we could play
Well, I'm in 10th grade, so I guess I should probably get that figured out, but I never have a solid answer to give people. I'm just like collecting all the brochures that I'm receiving right now and going through them. Someplace with a good foreign exchange program, language arts program, education, journalism, law, all the things I'm interested in, and a really pretty campus.
What was the last thing?
Really pretty campus. I know it's like the most shallow thing and that this should not be part of the considerations, but
No, no.
I could not stand spending 4 years someplace
Not
really
disgusting.
ugly.
You also want good weather. I mean, we're just playing a fantasy game. In like 5 or 10 years, where would you like to be?
In 5 or 10 years, well, I don't have like a solid image of what the future Adoris V Talk looks like, but I would say that I would hope that I would be in a position where I could say I've like touched this many people in some way positively, and whether that would be through an increase in teaching or more speaking, more advocacy. I'm not sure exactly how I would get there, but the end destination would be, I guess, greater impact.
Greater what?
Greater impact.
Right, but as you described this, it's not a specific achievement.
Okay, specific achievement. My big.
And I'm not pressing you to. I'm just commenting on it.
Okay, my big dream is a Pulitzer Prize, Nobel Prize in Literature, or Peace. You can tell I'm so specific. And, I always joke about getting knighted, but I'm fairly sure you have to be a British citizen for that.
You have to be a rock and roll star in England to be there. Query. Have you read any the Nobel Prize speeches of various writers?
I've read, like, I'm trying to think. If I have, it's been a really long time, so I'll just say no to be safe.
Okay. We should read Faulkner's.
Okay.
He's really good. You know a South African writer named J.M. Coetzee? C-O-E-T-Z-E?
I've heard of him, but I haven't read any of his work.
It's 158 words long, and if you can figure it out, you let me know.
Okay.
It's sort of like, my mom is proud. Should be proud. Could be proud. I mean, he completely punted on it. But Faulkner says, I'm sure you've come across the line, I believe man will not only endure, he will prevail.
Yes.
What do you do for fun?
Well, I write.
Or let me ask, is all of this fun?
I kind of think of speeches. I wouldn't say that I think of speeches as, like, what I do for fun compared to seeing movies or going on hikes or things like that. I would say, I would say that I have discussions with people for fun. That's definitely really fun, but that's not, like, a thing where I'm just going to wake up in the morning and be like, hey, let me talk with this person for a set number of hours.
Why aren't you on, like, the debate team?
I was going to be, but then nobody else was. There was only like one other person who was interested, so it wouldn't be big enough for tournaments. Yep.
How about the school paper?
I would, except I don't know. The school paper, their journalistic direction is leaning a little bit. I don't know. It talks about relationships and horoscopes way too much for me.
Talks about what?
Relationships and horoscopes.
So it's very popular.
Well, that's the thing though. Even though it talks about these things, not a whole lot of people read it. So that's the other thing.
So I write sometimes for the New York Times on Sunday in that movie section. If you were asked by them to write a piece, and I can make it happen for you, what would you like to write about?
Well, yeah, of course I definitely like to write with the New York Times. If I had the option to write a piece for the New York Times, I might write something about youth digital culture, or maybe more importantly, young people and our role in the social good area, because I mean I've been really inspired by seeing so many of my peers really get deeply involved in causes, and I feel like oftentimes we, maybe not only adults, underestimate the potential of this many people gathering for good, but also we underestimate, like, I didn't think that a lot of my friends were so interested in, say, raising money for cancer or something like that until I saw how many people turned out. So yeah, that might be a possible area.
Okay, if you had to pick two causes that you were going to spend time with, what would they be?
Oh, not just two. This is the problem. I spread myself
Okay,
really thin
it's
across
five. You're a
causes.
very good negotiator. You should be a litigator.
Causes. Okay, women's rights and Let me think. What else? Youth voice in education. And okay, I'm going to like push for a third one, which is kind of arguably could be merged with the second one, but education reform. Okay, I think I have it.
Education reform. If you could reform education, what would it be?
Well, I guess it does tie in youth voice. I mean, definitely a whole lot more youth voice involved, but also I feel like there's the school has kind of, I suppose, taken away independence to some extent in that we're told here's what you learn at this time, and it doesn't mimic the type of learning that you're going to do later in life. So to set young people on a path for more independent teaching themselves and really, I guess, more natural learning, then I know that things have to be
Got it.
changed.
So let me put the words in your mouth. You would kill No Child Left Behind.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, good. I mean, I'm not going to put those words in your mouth, but I'm saying that's sort of the right answer.
Yes.
I mean, do you feel, okay, Wordsworth says, you know, our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting, okay? Kids are born creative. And then, because because of the way we educate them, they turn into drones. Do you feel that happening to you even in the least? Do you feel like, God, you know, I was really fantastic at age 4 or 5, and I'm losing a step now?
A little bit. I feel like, I mean, I take AP Literature, and to some extent, I feel like the AP Literature almost drained the fun out of reading certain works for me, because,
Ancient literature, you mean you're reading Greek and Latin?
no, AP Literature, so advanced placement, and,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, suddenly, like, looking,
What are you reading in AP literature?
like, lots of poems, too many of these ancient English, I mean, not ancient, but, like, Marvel and John Donne, and I really don't like.
So what you're doing is full analysis, right?
Yes, and I guess maybe it shows that I don't have the depth of understanding or something. But when I look at poems and I'm thinking, okay, here's like polysyndeton, or I'm definitely not pronouncing that right, but whatever the techniques are, and I'm like, did the poet really sit down and think I am going to use a lot of conjunctions here? I really highly doubt that, and I feel like maybe the analysis, or it's like, yeah. So I guess I have a bit of a bone to pick.
Yeah, I mean, even people say, oh, that was so amazing, that thing you did. I wasn't doing that. I was just trying to get through the thing and, you know, trying to work the story out. I mean, I actually think the poet is writing out of the poet. The work is the life. It's not, it is different. Who's been the biggest influence on you as a public speaker?
Oh, I have a lot of influences. I wouldn't say Barack Obama is like a particularly big influence, but I like watched his speeches and thought, what can I do? And I'm definitely like going too political here, but I went to a Hillary Clinton rally and I was also really inspired by her. And I went to a Hillary Clinton rally when I was much younger, or actually not much younger, it was in 2008, and that definitely inspired me. I felt like I had to put more power in my speeches to some extent. I would say that I try to speak with a voice that's my own. But yeah, I definitely watch other people's speeches.
I've only seen the TED Talk, but you don't like throw in kid lingo. You don't try and get cute or jiggy with us. I noticed. Is that deliberate? That you don't talk like a kid. Well, you know the way kids supposedly talk.
Well, I think that the key word there is supposedly, because no one I know talks in a sort of infantile way, like through teenagehood at least. That's not a word actually, but I would say I just try to be genuine, and the way that I'm talking right now is the way I generally talk to people.
Right, but I mean, you don't talk like someone like a kid on the Disney Channel.
Well, but that's the thing that I hate, is that the Disney Channel, like, some of the kids on the Disney Channel talk in a way that I have never heard in real life ever, which I guess is why I can't stand some of the shows. Will I get in trouble for saying this at the conference?
Whatever.
I have said whatever occasionally, but not in that tone of voice, definitely not.
When you said whatever, were the people who were listening stunned?
No, it was my sister. I will say we talk in a really strange way. I think that that's one cool thing about siblings. They are the only people on the face of the earth that you can sing really crazy songs and talk to in a strange voice, etc. Like all over.
So would we say that your sister knows you better than anybody?
Probably, if my journal was a person, I guess that. But definitely.
My journal is a person. I don't know.
I know, I'm joking. My mom is offended. I think my mom heard that I said my sister knows me better than anyone, and she's offended. But I would definitely say, yeah, probably my sister does.
Okay, what if this journal is a person? The world is not here, but I'm curious about that.
Oh, if my journal were a person, it would think I was a really shallow, strange person. That's an interesting hypothetical question.
Now, how did you get involved with the UN World Food Program and free rice?
That was actually through my TED Talk, and I was really into their work because I had known about free rice for a really long time, and my mom had actually written an email to someone in charge of I guess like the WFP youth part, and they followed up after they saw my TED Talk and were interested in how I could get involved. So I did some interviews, and I got to travel to Sri Lanka to meet with children who were beneficiaries of the World Food Program school feeding operations, which was an incredible experience because, you know, we see like poverty on TV and it's kind of detached, but to see poverty so up close and to really meet with people and hear people's stories brought it home.
Uh-huh. How many hours a night do you sleep?
Well, I sleep for like 7 hours or 8 hours, but then I take a nap in the middle of the day.
Do you ever just feel like there's just too much stuff in your head?
I would say sometimes. I occasionally will just lie awake and sort of think through ideas until I get tired of them and tired enough to go to sleep. But generally
So wait a minute. You don't count sheep, you count ideas.
I don't count ideas. I just sort of turn them around in my head.
Do you listen to music?
Occasionally. Well, see, the thing is that my sister, because she's the piano and violin person, has just sort of so drenched my life with music of all sorts that maybe I've become a little bit, well, I'll say this. My sister's musical tastes have kind of influenced mine to a big extent, so whatever she listens to, I listen to, and same with my dad.
Okay, here's the point I'm driving at. You don't have a poster of Justin Bieber in your room.
No.
Got it. And so you don't know all the lyrics to the latest Katy Perry song.
I might, because I hear Katy Perry songs like everywhere I go, but I wouldn't like purposefully look them up.
I mean, if you had a chance to meet Lady Gaga, would that be a big deal or not?
That would be a big deal. Yes, that would definitely be a big deal. But not because I'm such a huge fan of the music necessarily, but I really admire what she's done with the Born This Way Foundation, and my sister is a mega fan, so it would almost be a little bit for bragging rights.
Uh-huh. You don't get tired of being you and think, oh God, I wish I were just sort of an ordinary girl who was worried about getting invited to the prom and what I was going to wear.
But the thing is that that's not necessarily mutually exclusive. I'm not saying that
Thank you. That was a trick question. Keep going.
I'm not saying that I worry about going to the prom. For one thing, I'm 14, so no senior would like ask me to go to the prom. But that is a technicality. Yeah, I think that that's one mistake that people make is they assume achievement kind of rules out social life or other way around. But I mean, like, just as I have friends and go to dances and stuff, people I know who might come across as shallow or uninterested in deep things on face level actually do care. I think that it goes both ways.
Okay, the final thing. As you know, age 14, which is your age, yes,
Mhm.
is exactly the age in co-ed schools when girls go silent and sit back and boys move to the front and teachers only listen to boys and, things start going wrong for girls. But that hasn't happened for you at all.
I think that because I'm aware of the possibility of that I make an extra effort to speak up, to be louder. Also, it helps that in biology class, everyone asks me for help on assignments, so I guess that helps with my confidence. I also have a lot of really awesome role models in my peers who are girls who speak up very loudly. I mean, like, the president of the robotics team at my school is a girl, and, you know, there's just a lot of people who I can look to and think I can be like them.
The point is, even you feel that thing closing in, right? The expectation that you behave like, you start to behave like a second-class citizen.
That's true. Because I'm so into feminism and girls' rights and stuff, I will often get into debates and such. Like, as an example, in my biology class, a boy started talking about how abortions were murder and such, and I and another girl, who's actually way better at being, like, loud and outspoken than I am, but we definitely, like, trounced him. Anyhow, I'm just saying, I never try to silence myself, and I almost, like, yeah, I would say I go after that aggressively.
Great. I think that's a good place to end. If you want to say that.
No, I think you covered a lot of ground. Terrific. I'm glad you guys got to catch up a little bit. And
We should probably, like, get rid of some of these other kids. Just, no, I'm kidding.
No.
I'm kidding. That's really not even what's happening.
Out of curiosity, will the questions on the panel seriously be like this?
No.
Okay.
No. Some will be. Why don't you give me your email address, okay?
Sure. Also, I had one question. Maybe this would be better for Annika. In my bio, I'm described as being a prodigy. I actually sort of hate being described as a prodigy. Is there any way that we could use maybe a synonym or a word that, other than that?
yeah, absolutely. And actually, that I intended to ask you that very question.
Yes, thank you so much.
If you have an updated bio or something that you'd like us to use for the website, that's fine. That was just sort of I think we grabbed it from Wikipedia, and it was actually to inform some of the people around here about the composition of the panel. But yeah, just
Yeah, I totally understand.
I have a
what
word.
you'd like to use.
I have a word. Why don't we say overachiever?
Well, that implies that there's, like, a certain...
I'm kidding.
Okay, I mean, overachiever is better. Overachiever is better, but that implies that, like, there's a bar of achievement hovering in the air that, like, where is that? You know, if I'm overachieving, then...
Or there's some hidden flaw that she's overcompensating for. A girl with a secret. What is that?
Yes, I still can't tie shoes. If you want a flaw, that is, like, my huge one.
Is what?
I can't tie shoes.
Can't tie shoes. All right, well, that's the lead. Are there any other? Are there any? So what is it? You wear Velcro sneakers?
Always. Not, I mean, like, it started out when I was, like, 5 or 6, and I was like, okay, this is too hard. And then my parents just tolerated it. They really should have taken a tough
No,
approach.
this is my point
This
of
is
view.
my mom, by the way.
I can tie sneakers and I can't do fractal.
Well, this is my view about tying shoes. I think that's kind of an old-fashioned skill, and there's many ways
No,
you can wear your shoes.
it's not an old-fashioned skill when you go to the bowling area with all your friends and you're like, can you tie my shoes? So it is not old-fashioned. Anyway, you can see I have some deep-seated resentment about that. I mean, I can probably force myself to tie shoes. It'll just be misshapen.
Lily Bart can tie her shoes, my friend. Okay, Adora, what's your email address?
Okay, it's sort of unwieldy. I'll spell it out. Pest, Pestito Adora at pestitoadora@gmail.com.
I'm sorry, say it again slowly.
Sure. Pestito Adora @gmail.com.
Why?
Little Pest. My tutor, when I was much younger, was teaching us Spanish, and for some reason I thought that it would make an interesting email, and it's kind of haunted me ever since.
Okay, let's do it one more time.
Pestito
Yeah.
Adora.
ADORA@gmail.com.
Yep.
Oh God, good. You know, I just feel like I've just achieved something here. All right, well, this is fun. I mean, I may send you a piece of mail, or JWT can do it, just to sort of hone in on some stuff. But basically, I mean, I think what we're just looking at, this is more for the introductions.
Okay.
For so that when the moderator doesn't have to say prodigy, much fun. I wish I were going.
Oh, you're not.
Watch it on the live stream, Jesse.
Oh, good. Oh, thanks. Definitely saw the difference. Thank you extremely much.
Yes, thank you. Great
Really
conversation.
nice. These people get back in touch. Just do everything they say. It'll work out great.
Great. Oh,
Okay, thanks a lot.
yep. Thank you. It's great talking to you. Thanks, Annika.
Jesse.
Bye. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.